So let's talk about part 4. Okay, so we've gone over estate planning, beneficiaries, accountability, and now we're going to be talking about fulfillment and purpose in this part 4 of the Life Check series. And, I guess right out of the gate, this is just a tough conversation, because when you talk about fulfillment and purpose, it just means so many different things to so many different people.
Right.
And
different phases of life too, right? Like
yeah.
it evolves as you grow up as well.
Yeah, and I guess we need to point out right away, like, why are we talking about fulfillment and purpose? Because it comes up a lot. When we're having discussions about retirement and you're 30 years old or 40 years old, or you're on the threshold of retirement, and we're digging into income planning, and we're doing what we normally do, for whatever reason, this comes up, this conversation of like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? What happens next? I'm in transition. I want to do something that makes me feel alive, or I don't want to just be done with work. I want to enjoy retirement, fulfillment and purpose wise. Mm-hmm. So that's a big reason why we're talking about this. It could have a heavy connotation to it. It can have a light connotation to it.
You sit there saying that, and it occurred to me that a lot of our clients, the initial shock is retirement itself. Am I really going to be able to make it? Mm-hmm. And so it might take 1 or 2 years for them to be comfortable that it's going to work out, and then that fulfillment and purpose can really kick in. But I think a lot of people are a little bit nervous as soon as they pull that trigger. The income's gone.
Right.
Yeah,
there's a lot of
going the other way now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
putting it in, we're
feelings.
taking it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And is it actually going to survive? Is this strategy that we've bought into for the whole, however long they've been with us, is it really going to work?
That's right.
So what does it mean to live a fulfilled life? So let's talk about that first before we try to figure out how to define what your purpose is.
Well, I can tell you what it's not. And I think so often people come in our office and they think that's what it is. It's not building up the biggest pile of money you possibly can and then saying, what's my purpose? Like, so often people are like, it's to make a whole lot of money. And I guess for some people it might be, but that doesn't necessarily need to be the first thing. I got to sneak that in there, because so often it's like we're running towards a goal. What do you really need? And what are you willing to give up to go get what you need? So anyway, go back to what you're saying. I'm telling you what it's not. But so often.
So what is it?
Yeah, I know.
We talk about it in college classes too, that you had a dream before you got married and went to work and whatever. And I think about my father-in-law, that when he retired, he became a fishing guide out on Lake Murray. That's something he always wanted to do.
Yep. And thinking about that fulfillment too, like it's almost going that second and third question in. It might be money. I just want to save up, have enough money to do what I want.
Right.
Okay, why? Right. Why do you want that? Like, what are those things? Do you want to go be that fishing guide? Do you want to go and serve in your community? Do you want to go do something else? Do you want to travel? What does that look like? And that's where you're going to find the fulfillment.
And a lot of times it's where you spend your time. It's relationships. It's making. So often we're like, oh yeah, we went and had dinner with somebody, but were you presently in the moment? For some, it could just be, I run my whole life working and balancing all my life. Now I just want to go spend meaningful time with my family and my friends, or just go and play a round of golf and not have to be somewhere right afterwards, or it not be for a work function. It just be for pleasure with people that you love, and time spent without the hard stop of where you have to be.
I mean, we've all been at an experience, a place, a restaurant, amusement park or something where you're just like, that person's not living their best life, where they're serving you whatever and they're walking like molasses.
Right.
There's no joy in their life, and you're just like, and you
almost want to tell them, like, hey, you're choosing to work here. Right. Like, you can find a different path. Yeah. Right. No one's holding you hostage.
And then on the flip side, you've seen probably, people lived experiences or what have you, where you're just like, man, that person loves what they do, and it could be a janitor type, all the way up to, something super special, where we look at as, oh, that's a prestigious job. And then there's other jobs you don't look as prestigious, but yet people find joy in just about every type of job.
Right.
Certain people don't.
Right.
But I think a little bit about what we're talking about to live, what it means to be, fulfilled and live your purpose is because you love what you do. Like you can't lay in bed. You're like, I got to get up and get going because I can't wait to do what I do, whether you're getting paid for it or not. And it feels like this conversation is framed around a paid job, but purpose has nothing to do with I'm getting paid or I'm volunteering. It's I'm living the life, that God designed me to do. And I love what I do, and it'd be okay if I didn't make money doing it.
Right. It's just an extra bonus that you do get paid to do it, right? And this can be something that happens when you're in your 30s and 40s or even in your 70s and 80s, but you want to try to find that, or at least that's my goal. I want to try to find that fulfillment and purpose as early as I can.
Yeah.
Why wait to retirement to start layering that in?
So what else does it mean to live a fulfilled life? There's quite a bit that we could say here.
Being part of something bigger has always been one that's kind of meaningful to me, and kind of some of the cultures I've worked in and some of the circles, friendships, and just being part of something bigger and feel like you contribute and make the bigger better just fills my cup overwhelmingly, regardless whether it's work or fun.
When I see people that love what they do, they're never complacent. They're like, I could always be better. Like I can bring more of myself into what I do. I could do this a little bit different, even though like yesterday was amazing, but tomorrow can be better. Like when you see somebody that's truly passionate about what they're doing, again, volunteered, non-volunteered, paid, not paid, they're just like, I love what I do so much. I'm going to continually get better at it. I'm going to bring the best I have, and I can always bring something more. And, that's when I step back and go, man, this person is just living their best dream, living their purpose.
Yeah, it's exciting to be around people like that.
Yes.
I mean, it's infectious.
Yeah.
Like you want to see
it makes you smile the way you just did when you thought about it.
Always.
Like you just lit up.
Yeah.
It's
that's
true.
how I feel, though. Like I feel like I get to do that right now in what I'm in. So.
You guys know my dorky mission in life, but I always use the word dorky and people yell at me. But driving home, falling asleep, or in my shower every day, I need to be able to think about somebody else who's driving home, falling asleep, or in their shower, saying I'm a little bit better today because I had Nikki in my life. And sometimes that was a hug, sometimes it was a kick in the butt, sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's looking for a job or saying, okay, we can retire. And sometimes it's just saying hello in a supermarket, or when you've got a waiter or a waitress who is obviously not in the place they want to be, and you can just make them smile and realize that they made a difference for your dinner in the moment that you were having. To me, that's my mission. Every day to be able to think of somebody who is positively impacted because they had a second or an hour, or in some cases 3 hours, of Nikki in their life that day.
There was a time I think I was a sophomore in college when this happened, but I worked at the regional airport in Virginia at Liberty. And I remember one of my friends coming in saying, hey, my brother's flying in, or he came to meet with me. He's like, my brother's flying in today. You got to meet him. And I was like, sure. And he's like, I worked on the private regional side or private side of the airport. And then there's the commercial side where everybody flies in and out. I didn't hang out too much over there. But on this day, I was like, I'll come meet your brother. So I remember I had to like take my break, head over, and I was like in the waiting room. This is back when you could like go to the gate, before the crazies happened.
Yep.
Just you're showing your age there a little bit.
That's okay.
You're very
old. So anyways, I was sitting there, and the only type of plane that flew, most of the planes that flew in were Dash 8s, and a Dash 8's like a 2-prop.
Oh, so like a small,
super small. Yeah. It had like 16 to 30 people, and everybody's getting off the plane, and I watched my buddy walk out to the plane, and I waited, and everybody gets off, and then he's just standing there, and I'm like, what the heck? And then sure enough, like 2 minutes after everybody gets off, you see a wheelchair come out, and then his brother like gets lifted down, and they put him in his wheelchair, and he comes over, and I remember his brother, he was like holding a basketball, and he was like an adult, like I'm a teenager. And my buddy was a teenager, and this guy was like 24, 25 adult. And I mean, I'm a young adult. He's like mid-20 adult.
Yeah, I was gonna say adult.
And at that time of my age, I wasn't considering myself an adult. You know, I probably was 30 before I'd consider myself an adult. And we all mature a little different. You know,
He's still figuring that one out.
yeah. So he gets this basketball and he's pushing himself over and he's dribbling the basketball in his wheelchair. And I kind of walked out and he puts his hand out and he's like, hey, my name is so and so, and he just had a joy on his face that I cannot describe. I think I talked to him for 37 seconds, and he just lit up. In the first, he's like, my name's so, and he's like, what's God doing in your life? And I was like taken back, like, what? And he's like, what's God doing in your life? Because we serve a good God, and he's been so good to me. Like, I mean, I don't even know who this guy is. I don't even remember his name. But I remember being so impacted by the 30-second conversation I had with this guy that no matter what your circumstances are, you can live a fulfilled life. Like, this guy was living a fulfilled life in a wheelchair. And my heart was breaking. And I'm like, my buddy didn't even mention it. My brother can't walk. Nothing like that. He's like, you gotta meet my brother. And I'm like, man, okay. Like, nobody's normally like that. Like, you gotta meet so and so. So, we literally walked to the gate, and I had to go back to, get back on my shift. And he was just so filled with joy, so full of life, just happy, just one of those people where you're like, man, can I just have a coffee with you? Like, could you mentor me? Like, how did you get like that?
Well, and one prayer is you just hope that he realizes the impact that he's having on others.
Oh yeah.
He knows.
He knows.
Yeah. That hints that you got to meet his brother, but it's just like, wow.
He was so full of life. And, for me, what does it mean to be fulfilled with life? I think back to that. When you are so content, so happy to be where you are, that it oozes out. You can't keep it inside of you. You're a light. Yep. You're a beacon, a beam. You're just, I love what I do. I love how God made me. I love everything about my circumstances, although it's not always easy. Sometimes it's hard, and you look at other people and I'm like, man, how can they how many movies have they made about people that lived extraordinarily difficult situations that were just happy?
Yep.
And so content, and here we are, our third world problem, our first world problems are nothing, and yet we get stressed out every day.
Oh yeah. And about little things that people are like, what?
Things. So what's the difference between purpose and goals? And I wanted to ask this question because I feel like sometimes when you talk about fulfillment and purpose, I think it gets a little bit construed or connected to, well, I'm just achieving this goal.
Yeah.
And is purpose, does it have anything to do with goals?
I might have a goal to lose weight, but that might not make me happy and be fulfilled.
It may not be your purpose either.
Well, I sure suffered trying to lose 10 pounds here, so I don't know if it's exactly the same.
But losing 10 pounds or 20 pounds or whatever may enable you to go and do the thing that fulfills your purpose.
Oh, it may.
So maybe the goal is to lose the weight for something bigger. You want to go and play tennis, happens to be, and setting a goal to help you have the right weight, be in the right shape, have the body.
But is that purpose? Does achieving, in this example, a weight, does that help you fulfill your goal or purpose, or your purpose or fulfillment?
I almost see goals, at least for me, as like stepping stones to help me get to where my purpose is.
So in this context,
destination.
So in this context, it's like my fulfillment would be this. I feel like this sounds a little crazy. To be healthy, like, is that really somebody's purpose? But whatever. Like, I want to live a healthy, purposeful life.
Yep.
So weight might
just help. Be hey, I want to be here with my kids and my wife as long as I possibly can,
and to be able to move.
So
with
in
them.
order to do that, I'm gonna have to set up some goals to help me achieve that longer life. I've got to take care of my body. I've got to exercise.
And there are circumstances that I guess I shouldn't have said what I just said, because the more I think about it, I'm like, that could be somebody's purpose because of challenges in their life and things that I would never understand.
Parents died earlier, any number of things. You're trying to prevent such a thing. But in life today, as well as in retirement, the rest of your life, some people focus on the milestone or the end point, and I think that's wrong. You got to enjoy the journey as you get there.
Yes.
Because oftentimes, once you hit that milestone, it's not nearly as fulfilling as you thought it would be.
That's right.
Okay, so then let's jump into
that fulfillment that you once thought when you were 30. This is where I want to be. You get there, and you're like, wait, it's totally changed now. Right. I'm in a different.
So can your
phase of
purpose
life.
change?
I think so for sure.
I think so too. For sure.
Interesting. So what kind of purpose are we talking about that can change?
I mean, my whole purpose changed from a very selfish mindset. Then you go get married and you have kids, and it no longer becomes about you.
But was the first one really your purpose?
In that time,
according to your understanding at the time.
Yeah.
That's who I was at the time. That was.
Did you know your purpose, or were you just searching for it still?
I think I knew aspects of my purpose.
And you may, in the moment, you probably think you do. That's the thing. Until you know
evolves.
better, you think you do, and it evolves when other things become in sight.
I don't know if I see it that way, because in this I could be way off. But like when I look at before kids and before marriage and all that, I think I was really searching for mine. I don't know if I ever had it. Like, did I have anything to identify myself? Sure. But was it my purpose? I don't know. But this is an interesting discussion. Yeah. I'm not saying I'm right.
Sure.
I'm just saying my perspective is like, now at the stage of life I'm at now, I feel like I'm living my purpose. But back then I'm not sure I would have ever said like this was, because I thought my purpose was going to be a pastor, and God never allowed me to get that. So I never felt like I achieved it, because he never put me in ministry, even though I was interning and I was doing everything in the church, but I wasn't in a full-time position, and I was just struggling with the whole thing. So and not that there is only one purpose.
Right. And I think that purpose evolves, and I think that's kind of was my point. Like, even I feel like I'm in my purpose now, but I know that's going to evolve as I age.
I think we evolve, and that impacts your
it's
end.
Like this onion that continues to just peel layers, and for us, like, God really does just start revealing more of like, okay, you're good here, but I'm gonna push you a little further, and I've got a little more for you to do.
Well, I used to think it was climbing the corporate ladder. I mean, I loved what I did. I loved what I did. I still look back and find so much joy in the memories and the people. And I had my best friend who's no longer with us, and most people who know me know this is such a big part of my life. But walking around the soccer field waiting for our girls to finish up, I was up for a promotion, and it involved a move. And Ruby asked me, do you really need to take that? What do you need? Like, do you need more money? You already say that you don't have enough time with your kids. Like, you already say that you and Chris, your dates are on the sports fields watching your kids. Do you really need to take another promotion? Like, do you really need to do that? And it was going to be a job that was big. And at the time, I could not receive that advice. And I took that next role. And it was a whole lot of travel. And then when the time came, I'll get very emotional, when the time came for me to decide whether to take one of the opportunities that was left at Frito or to keep moving, I was able to take that advice. Ruby was then gone, but I was able to take that advice. And while I loved the first 21 years I spent at Frito and climbing that corporate ladder and the challenges and the joys that came along with the milestones, I look back and say, she gave the advice. I couldn't take it then, but as you lose somebody and you realize certain things that you didn't make time for are truly important, and you may not always have the time for them. And you love what you do, so you want to make time for that too, but you can do it in another way. And you guys also know you were part of my letting go phase of Frito, right? But you can always hold on to that. But to Kyle's point, I feel like, you mentor young people. You get mentored, but in this, you get to do it in an even bigger, meaningful way. There, I was trying to help people be the best they could be, and then be a present mom or a present parent, because that was the challenge that I faced. Here, you enable them in so many different ways to challenge them with this very deep question. Yeah. You ask them a question, and it may be like Ruby for me. They might be saying, and so many of you guys out there are probably wondering, why the heck are we even having this? But many of the folks that we serve, they do very well. financially. They sit on big boards. They make meaningful impacts in a lot of ways. Just always kind of stay in check, life check, for lack of a better way to say it. Is that your purpose? Or are you doing that because you feel like you're supposed to? Or are you doing that because you haven't slowed down to think that there may be other things? So for me, to Kyle's point, you can grow and things could happen. You could lose people or gain people, have babies, that cause you to reflect.
Or new friends.
Friends.
Got tons of relationships of men and women that I never knew until a year ago that are, impacting my life in totally different ways.
And then the sports, the reason I brought up the weight loss for sports, I struggle with a couple of injuries right now, having surgery, and I have plantar fasciitis. I can't get out there, and I want to be in the boxing gym, and now I just go to yoga. I'm missing out with that community. So for me, when I think of you, I think of that tennis being so much of your community, and it's different to sit on the sideline than to be competing, and then to competing the way that you ultimately can. To me, that might be a purpose, being with those people.
Why is identifying your purpose so difficult for everyone? Like, it's hard. I mean, you're in your store, Nikki, you got really good advice at a time where you didn't want to listen.
Yeah.
And, and then at another time you were ready to listen and acted on that. It's changed your life.
Right.
Why is finding your purpose and living your purpose? I mean, when I have this conversation with clients, because they'll come, at the randomest time, they'll ask me a question. I'm just not happy, or I don't feel like I'm living the life I'm supposed to be living, or whatever. And I don't know how to figure that out. People that are living a good life, and they'll just, when we say this a lot, like when you know what somebody makes and you know everything about them financially, all the walls are down.
Right.
And there's this freedom where they just feel like they can have really blunt conversations with you about everything.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Yeah.
And, this comes up in so many of our clients, so many of our friends, so many people that have opened up to you or open up to us will basically have this conversation, be like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. So it just begs the question, why is it so dang hard?
It's not the narrative you get fed. Like when you're going through school, when you're early on in your career, it's achieve, grow, more. It's never stop and think about if you're fulfilling your purpose. It's like, you got to make money to provide. You got to do this job. You got to take the promotion, especially in like big corporate. If you're not moving every 2 years, you're getting pushed out. So it's achieve. And then by the time you get there, you're like, where am I?
Where am I?
I don't even know who this person is.
But there's also no one way. I think you kicked off our little discussion here with, this is kind of a hard discussion because it's so different for everybody. Yeah. And I think part of the reason it's so hard is because there's no right answer. You coach your kids when they're younger. Yeah, go to practice, work hard. You'll probably get playing time because you'll be good. You go to class, you study hard, you'll get good grades. What the heck? Purpose? Can you begin to tell me what the rules are?
No, it's achieve.
It's
this performance culture.
It's yes. And we're not saying that's bad. Like, I am very competitive. I like to win, but the competition for me, admittedly, and I'm sorry if I've ever competed against you, but I used to want to beat other people. Crushed on the field, on the scorecard.
She has a little bit of passion.
Slight. But now it's for me and my personal goals and purpose and how balanced can I stay. And not that I don't like to win. Did axe throwing with soccer friends. I was trying to throw the axe well, and I've never thrown it before. So it's not against other people. It's against your personal self. But again, I think the discussion is so hard because even when you get there, you don't even know if you're there. Some people, do people ever make it? You'll sit and talk to people, and I think we all have our people that we've had to do this with, and they're at their final days, and they don't even know.
I would say,
and they don't even know if they hit it.
One of the things that you said about your story, resonated with me, because the purpose in my life, I struggled greatly, up until probably 15 years ago, and, you've all heard my story about the conversation I had with my buddy, John. I thought the purpose God laid out for my life was full-time ministry. I knew that from a very young age. I shouldn't say knew that. I believed that from a very young age. And, that's why I went to school. That's what I studied, and then I get a job to be a financial advisor, and I'm like, what the heck? And then when I'm ready to quit as a financial advisor and go into full-time ministry, God pulls me over into a Christian firm. And then it was probably a couple years into that relationship with this new firm where I was just living that, like, I shouldn't be doing this. And have a conversation with one of my high school or my college buddies. And I was just complaining to him one day on the phone, you know, I'm not living the life God wants me to live, you know? And then he just kind of blasted me a little bit to what you were saying. Like, what are you talking about? Like, he said, the way I see it, you're in full-time ministry without the drama of the church, which is one of the first bold statements. He's like, maybe God protected you from the church because he knew it was going to ruin you. And I'm like, what? Like, and I was such in a raw state. I wasn't able to like digest anything that he said about that. Now I look back and I'm like, man, those were some powerful statements, you know? And I'm like, but John, I'm not, you know, we had 12 buddies and at college that we were really tight. And, you know, and I was like, I'm the only one that does work in a church. And then he's like, why do you think that, you know, you're not in full-time ministry because the name on your check isn't a church, you know? And he said it a little bit different, but it really impacted me. And that was the day that I feel like, okay, the thought began, well, maybe I am doing what God wants me to do. I just thought it was going to be different. And then slowly but surely, I got to the point where I'm like, you know, okay, if this is what God has for me, then I want to be the best at it. I want to set goals. I want to achieve. I want to be, you know, I want to make a difference as a financial advisor. And that was the day the spark of passion started growing in my life, where I went from this being a job to a career path to a passion, you know, where like, this is my purpose. And even saying the things like, did God create me to be a financial advisor? Like before that conversation, I would be like, seriously? Like, what kind of thought is that? Now I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Like God has called me to be a financial advisor. Like I love what I do. So much of my being is being webbed, you know, connected into my client base, advisors, like the relationships that I build, the ministries that are in my heart, like everything is connected together. You can't see the non-advisor me and the, like, it's all like meshed together. And that's where I was struggling earlier with, like, that was my purpose and I just didn't see it. Mm-hmm. I wasn't able to believe it until I got called to the carpet by some of my friends. And that's when I was like, well, maybe I need to let that guard down a little bit and dig in more. And now I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing exactly what God wants me to do. And yet it's not, you know, it's not what I thought the life was going to be for me. But I'm happy. I'm living my best life. Like I'm doing exactly what I need to be doing. It's not defining me. It's who I am. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, the conversation that you brought up in a couple shows ago about, you know, as
how men define themselves, see themselves. I am my career.
I'm defined by my career.
Mm-hmm. So, and that's not a good way for us to think. So.
That's right.
And I don't think, you know, the fact that I'm a financial advisor defines who I am. I think who I am defines the fact that I'm a financial advisor. And, you know, I'm living out the purpose of my life and I just happen to be.
It enables it.
Yeah. And I love it.
It's
and I don't lead with that when people ask me, like, what do you do?
What do you say?
I guess it depends on the circumstance. You know, like I don't run from the fact that I'm a financial advisor, but I don't dive into the fact that I'm a financial advisor. You know, because there's two big aspects to what we do, you know, from a financial advising standpoint and fintech software. Mm-hmm. And depending on my mood, I'll decide which one I want to talk about. You know, I don't say both.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I'm just like, I'm a software developer, you know, and then other times I'm like, you know, I get to work with, you know, financial advisors and clients alike, you know, on their finance. And, you know, I love the fact that, you know, we're in the relationship business, you know, and I guess at the end of the day, when it comes to purpose, I feel like relationships are always at the top of that conversation. And we're in the relationship business and we're talking about purpose, which is all about relationships. Right.
Yeah. We get to do it 100% of the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Like, come on. I don't feel like we've given any tangible insights. Like, you shared your story, I've shared mine, but, like, could we help somebody really identify? Like, we went through your understanding your why. And this was, like, alongside, like, 8 years ago or something. And it was almost
This was whenever I found out you were an advisor. Didn't even know that you were. We were in a life group for like 4 years.
did that help? Would you say that was a practical, helpful exercise that we went through to understand a little bit more about your purpose?
A lot of my journey over the past, I guess, even if you go all the way back to there, but even more recently in the last couple of years, as I've gone through a fellowship program, a lot of what it's done is just allowed a vocabulary that I didn't know. So I can more easily say, like, here's some words to what I'm actually feeling and how I feel like I'm relating to people, how I'm serving, how I'm using my gifts. Some of it's just finding, like reading more, researching, being around people who you're surrounding. I think the other side of that was being able to just kind of pour out my story and my life and allow someone to hear it and then speak back to me. Like, because a lot of times it's very hard to like self-counsel and
Very
self-articulate everything that you're feeling. But if you can share your story, get around people that you've spent life with and have them be like, here's what I see. It's your buddy John, right? Like you needed him to speak into you to kind of free you up. So whether that's a spouse or a best friend or whomever, just get around some folks that can speak into you, especially if you're having a tough time with like, what's this next step? Where do I really feel like I'm finding my sweet spot?
I mean, one of the other tangible things that I've given advice on to clients is, especially when they're a little bit more seasoned in age, like
Don't look at me when you say that.
I was trying not to.
I mean, he does have a lot of salt.
Yeah. One of the things, he's going to come at you and you're going to regret saying that.
Be ready. He's quick on his feet.
Go back into like the memory books, like look at old photos from high school. Look at the things that made you happy when you were young. Like I can tell you when I lived in Buffalo, New York, when I was a little kid, we used to scavenger in trash, and look for hidden treasures of things that people would throw out. And a lot of times I had a paper route, so I had papers, we saw lots and lots of papers. So I used to grab the paper and I grabbed the financial, stock section or whatever. And I used to I didn't even read them, but I'd like circle stuff. And I just remember as a young kid, thinking about, I never wanted to be a financial advisor, but I remember playing the roles. In my own mind, and I
when
used
you
to
look
put
back,
the
it's so clear.
put the paper underneath my arm, and I'd circle these things, and I'd sit down at the breakfast table with my paper, and my dad's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm just looking for stocks to buy," and he's like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah, just practicing for when I get older, But my dad will even tell you, I never wanted to be a financial advisor, but there for a long period of time, I played the part, and I don't have pictures of that. I'm sure we could find a few, but. Going back into the history books of your life and what made you happy when you were a kid, what are the things that, made you just light up inside? Because sometimes we get distracted by life. You have kids, you have a family, you're on the sports field, you get identified by everything else and you lose yourself.
Well, one thing I was going to say as you were talking, it just hit me. One of the most challenging times in my life led me to learning a big part of my purpose. And another very special person in my life is my little buddy. Well, I got sick in college, nearly died, right? Blood at 3.4, could no longer play softball. Very, very hard. You work your whole life, right? Play softball. And then you get knocked out. And what did I end up doing? After I got out of the hospital, I began coaching. And an 8th grader changed my life and taught me that it's not about you playing, it's about the difference you can help in others in their game too. So instead of wanting to go just into sales, I realized at that time that people leadership was a big deal for me. Yeah. And then accordingly, that's how I kind of got to my first job at Frito-Lay. Otherwise, it would have been pharma sales instead of people leadership and sales at Frito-Lay. But it came from a very tough season of my life. Near death, giving up softball, which was my love and my life. Sometimes you learn the most about yourself. You grow the most by going through those challenging times, those challenging seasons. So my coaching might be, don't be afraid to go through those seasons and be as grateful for those as you are in the times when you're winning and you're performing, everything's going well. So growth is in the tough seasons.
Any last nuggets that you want to share before we call this to an end?
No, I might have to come after Kyle. So it's probably best I keep my thoughts to
We'll keep
myself
this.
here.
Yeah,
Dang.
we'll keep this.
Sorry.
Anything?
Makes for fun.
No, I mean, just piggybacking on what Nikki was finishing up with. I mean, muscles are, it takes resistance training, and you got to go out and put in the work, and don't be afraid of it. Like, lean in, and if you're truly trying to find that fulfillment, that purpose, surround yourself with some friends that know you really well, and just start asking them the questions.
Mm-hmm.
Have a conversation.
Good advice. Anything else?
Good to go.
Good stuff.
I'd say for me, like this is, again, we started by saying this is a tough conversation. I'd end by saying this is a tough conversation, because it's just not easy.
Right.
And, but it's a real conversation. For some of you out there, like a lot of us, you'll pray through this. You'll talk to God. You'll have a very intimate conversation with people that you love about yourself. And you have to almost get vulnerable. For others, they don't want to do that. And, whether you're on one side of the fence or the other, having these conversations about purpose is real. And it's important because everybody wants to get out of bed in the morning and just go, man, I can't wait to live my life today. And, again, the reason why we're having this conversation, it's a tough, deep conversation, is because it comes up all the time, and we can be a resource to you. I'm not certain that we know everything about this topic because it's been a little challenging to talk about it, because it's so different. Like, everybody arrives at their purpose and their calling, and this conversation just so differently. But it's an important one to have. So thanks for listening today. And we got one more thing. It's a little bit of our sweet spot. The next part is going to be financial planning and income planning for retirement, which I think we'll be able to fill that one real well. So we'll talk to you soon.